My mom laughed in my face as she looked at me in the mirror. I could tell she was about to ridicule me again, so I braced myself for more insults. I was used to them, but it still hurt when I heard them from my own mother's lips, especially when we were out shopping. Do you seriously think anyone would be able to hold their laughter in when they see you in that? Oh dear, oh dear, I'm even struggling not to break out in a fit. Sweetheart, you needn't go to the party, you know. All our relatives will be there, and it'll be embarrassing enough that no boy would want to be your date. Imagine what everyone will think when they see you in that dress. They'll think you're trying too hard. No, this dress needs to be worn by a real woman. In fact, I should be the one wearing this. I struggled when she tried to wrestle the dress off my hands. But Mom, please, I saved up to buy this. And congratulations! Now give me the dress because you'll just make it look as ugly as you. I tried to hold on to the hanger the dress was still clinging to, but my mom tugged at it with force, and that was when the dress ripped. The shop assistant looked at us in shock, and she finally grabbed it from both of us and put it in my basket. You break it, you buy it. Hi, I'm June. My mother has always told me I'm not pretty enough. Now she's kicked me out of the house for it. But don't worry, that's not where my story ends. Do you think you have an idea for a great story? Post the title in the comments below and give a like to the ones you want to see animated. Now, let's get back to it. It was my brother's wedding, and everyone we knew was going. Patrick was pretty popular. He was kind, successful, and every girl in the city had a crush on him. Unfortunately for those girls, they weren't Amy. Amy was the prettiest, sweetest girl I ever met, and I'm really happy Patrick ended up with her. The only downside is, with my brother out of the house, it meant nobody was there to protect me from our own mother. I think my mother hated me ever since I was born. The day I was born, Dad disappeared. He was there at the hospital, and he told my mom that he was going for a bit of fresh air. He never returned, and my mom always blamed that on me. It's because he took one look at you and saw how ugly you were. It's pathetic. Your dad was hot. I'm hot. And somehow you're a disappointment. He must have thought he wasn't the dad. If it wasn't for you, we'd still be rich. My whole life I've lived believing that. Every time my mom told me I was too skinny, too tall, too awkward, I would cry about it and believe it. She was my mother. To me, everything she said was true and right. Patrick was perfect, though. He was the favorite. He was handsome, top of his class, and looked up to. I wanted so desperately to hate him, to envy him, but I failed at that too. And it was all his fault. Patrick's the best brother anyone could ask for. Whenever Mom would tell me something that made me cry, he was always there to comfort me. He would always tell me I was beautiful, that I wasn't all those awful things Mom made me out to be. But I never believed him. He was my older brother. Of course, he would tell me I wasn't ugly, that I wasn't deformed. I loved him for it, for always cheering me up. But every time I looked in the mirror, I only saw what my mom saw. The month before his wedding, Mom and I went shopping for dresses. And when I saw the dress I'd been eyeing for months, I was so ecstatic. I grabbed it from the rack and held it up against my neck, trying to see what I'd look like in it before trying it on. My mom took one look at it, and I knew she wanted the dress for herself. And that was when things began to go downhill. On the day of Patrick's wedding, I wore the dress that Mom tore. I worked on it for days, repairing it so it wasn't too obvious that it had gotten ruined. I didn't have enough to buy a new dress, and my wardrobe was mostly oversized shirts and frumpy sweaters. My mom was right. People did stare, and they pointed and laughed. They laughed because they thought I looked ridiculous, because I thought I was pretty enough to wear such a pretty dress, and they laughed because they could see it was torn and I'd mended it. People laughed. My cousin Trixie went on live as she loudly announced to her followers everything that was wrong about me, and then my mom made her entrance. And yeah, she was wearing the exact same dress, only hers looked beautiful. When she came out, everyone gasped, and then the laughter came back, louder and more evil than before. The moment she saw me, she ran straight at me. "Get out! Right now! Get out of here! Leave!" Suddenly, the laughing crowd grew quiet, and Patrick and Amy finally heard the commotion. They rushed to my side and defended me. "What are you doing, Mom?" Can't you see? She's embarrassing me. How dare she come in the same dress? And it's torn, too. People can see. Embarrassing you? You're the one making a scene. People are laughing at me, Patrick. She did this on purpose. You know how much she yearns for the attention that only I get. Please, please, can we calm down? There's really no need to cause a scene. I won't have it. I will not. She has to leave. It's our wedding, and June is my maid of honor. If anyone should leave, it's the one who's being a nuisance. Mom couldn't speak. Amy had never raised her voice at her before. Even Patrick looked so proud that his new wife took a stand against our mom. But I couldn't let anything spoil my brother and Amy's day. I'm sorry. It's all right. She should stay. I'll leave. No, June, absolutely not. It's not your fault. June, it's okay. I'll go. You should. In fact, pack your things. You're an embarrassment. Don't you ever come back home. I can't let people think you're my daughter. You're simply not pretty enough. Patrick and Amy tried to stop me, but I ran. I ran because I had to cry the tears I was trying to hold back. In the distance, I heard my mother announce that I was not her daughter. I bumped into a man outside the church. Before I fell, he steadied me and caught me. I immediately blushed when I saw the tall, handsome, well-dressed stranger. You all right? Running away from all that cheesiness too, huh? It's my brother's wedding. Well, my apologies if I called it cheesy. My name's Hans. I'm just here for Amy. We've been friends for ages, and even though I hate weddings, I didn't mean to. Are you crying? He handed me a handkerchief, and we talked for hours. We just walked in the graveyard, and I told him everything that led up to that point. And to my surprise, he held my face in his hands, took a good look at my face, and wiped away my tears. June, you have nothing to cry about. You are beautiful. It's such a shame your own mother couldn't see that. I wiped my tears. You really think so? I'm looking at you now, and I'm not blind, am I? I hugged him, and he hugged me back. If I were a designer, I'd hire you to model my clothes any day of the week. I laughed at how ridiculous that was. Me? Model? That's absurd. I'm not pretty enough to be a model. Sweetheart, you're not pretty. You're beautiful. The pretty girls, they can do commercials and catalogs, but you need to be beautiful to be a model. He twirled me around and told me again that I was beautiful. It turned out Hans was indeed a designer. That weekend, he invited me to Paris. Without warning, he instructed his team to pick out a dress for me and do my makeup. Within a few hours, I was walking the runway. I almost tripped when I saw how bright the lights were and how many cameras were pointed at me. At the end of the show, people applauded, and when I got backstage, Hans and his team applauded me. They told me I was a natural. They told me I was going to be famous, and they were right. So many designers called Hans after that show. They wanted to know who I was. Photographers, magazines, modeling agencies, they all wanted to book me. Me! I was overwhelmed, but Hans was there through it all. My life changed from tragic to triumphant just like that. I may have lost my home, but I found a new one in Hans. He protected me, gave me a place to stay, and he loved me. Hans and I were a perfect pair, and after I became a supermodel, we made it official. Amy and Patrick were one of the few guests at our wedding. We wanted it to be intimate and special, so we only invited those who were closest to us. I still invited Mom, of course, but she never showed. Patrick walked me down the aisle, and we were both sobbing messes by the time he handed me to Hans. That day was the best day of my life. Days later, I saw my mom again. She'd tracked Hans and I down during our honeymoon, and she sounded desperate. Turned out, instead of going to our wedding, she'd spent the money I sent for her ticket on a shopping spree. She'd been spending all her money on shopping sprees, and now she was deep in debt. I hear you're a big shot now. Don't suppose you could spare some cash for your mom? You couldn't come to my wedding, but you're here? In the Bahamas? Oh, please, don't be a tightwad. I don't have enough for a ticket home. You say you're a model, but I don't really see why. You definitely don't look the part. I was almost about to pity her, seeing her so disheveled and stressed, but when she came back in with another insult, I was over it. I gave her $1. Here, use that to buy yourself a wet wipe from the ladies' room. Your makeup's too thick. And I left her there to figure out how she was going to get back home with no money.